Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the MLB slate on DraftKings for Saturday, August the 3rd. In this video, we're going to cover the 13-game main slate for Saturday night. There's an early slate today, but I believe it's only 2 games, so I don't plan on playing that. So I'm not going to have a video up for that. Just going to look at the night slate for tonight. Talk about pitching. There's a lot of good pitching at the top. We got 6 guys over 10K right now on DraftKings. So there's a lot of ways you can go in terms of spending at pitcher. For hitting, there's a lot of high totals on this slate as well. A couple teams with a 6 implied run total or higher. There's a course field game. There's some other teams with like a 5 implied run total. Definitely multiple ways you can go in terms of batting. I'll be sure to talk about the stacks I like. We'll go over pitching first. I'll hit on all the pitchers I like today. Like I said, we'll talk about some stacks. We'll look at 3 specific hitters that I really like. And then towards the end of the video, we'll cover some BVP plays as well. But before we do get started, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like on the video. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button down below so that way you don't miss out on any of my new videos. So starting off with the 10K and above options, starting off with these stud options, I think it really comes down to a few guys at the top here. Steven Strasburg at 11-6 against the Diamondbacks. I don't feel like I need to play today, just not the most optimal spot. Diamondbacks don't really strike out much. Strasburg is the most expensive pitcher on the slate. He's not going to be a guy that I look to. Same for Trevor Bauer, making his debut with the Reds in a very tough spot against the Braves, and he's also very expensive at $11,100. Just don't really need to go to Bauer or Strasburg. Walker Buehler, though, at home against the Padres, I do like quite a bit at $10,900. He is by far in one of the better spots out of all these 10K and above pitchers. The Padres are a team that strike out a lot versus right-handed pitching. Buehler's been excellent this year, showing a lot of K upside. He's had some really good games this year. He definitely has struggled at times, especially when he's been in tough matchups. But when the matchup is right, you can get some really big games from Walker Buehler. I could see him putting up one of those 10K games where he goes 6-7 innings with 10-plus Ks. Has a really good game. So I do like Buehler a lot. But Aaron Nola is going to be the guy that I look to the most. $10,100, he's the cheapest of all the 10K and above pitchers. And I would say between him and Buehler, it's very close who has the better matchup. I would say Nola might have the best matchup out of all these guys. Getting to face the White Sox at home. We know how bad this White Sox lineup is. They strike out a ton versus right-handed pitching. Nola's pitching at home where throughout his career he's always been better at home than on the road. Plus National League ballpark, so the White Sox are going to lose their DH. They're going to have to put a pitcher in the lineup, which is pretty much a free strikeout. You just look at this lineup, it's really bad. There's plenty of Ks for Nola here. He's very good versus righties. He struggles more with lefties, and the lefties in this lineup you're not really concerned about. Luis Garcia, Ryan Goins, John Jay, Yolmer Sanchez, just not good hitters. Nola also very heavy favorite, minus 256. I would say it's very likely he's able to pick up a win, get you those 4 extra DraftKings points. So love going to Aaron Nola today. I think he has just as much upside as any of the other guys priced above him. Wouldn't be surprised if Nola's the highest scoring pitcher on this slate. So between him and Walker Buehler, I'm going to lean Aaron Nola. I do like Buehler, though, a lot. If you can find a really cheap stack, and I think there are some very cheap stacks that are viable today, you could definitely play Nola and Buehler together on DraftKings. I was trying to build a lineup before I started recording, and I was able to get in a cheap stack that I liked with Buehler and Nola together. So it can be done, but there are some mid-tier and cheap value pitchers you can target. You don't have to pay up for 2 pitchers unless you really can find a cheap stack that you like. But let's talk about some of these mid-tier guys, and then we'll look for some value. So a couple mid-tier plays that stand out. John Gray's pitching in Coors, but it is a favorable matchup for him against the Giants. He's $7,800, which feels like a lot to pay for John Gray when he's at home in Coors, but the matchup's just so good. Giants are not that good of an offense. There are some Giants hitters, though, that I do like today. Brandon Belt's still way too cheap. Scooter Gennett's still way too cheap. Crawford's very cheap. So I could see playing some Gray today. I could also see looking at some Giants bats because they still do have a pretty high total, 5.7 implied run total. You just got a ton of value in this lineup. But if you're not going to Giants bats, John Gray at $7,800 makes some sense in this mid-range. Same with Chris Archer. Chris Archer's really struggled this year. He's been very up and down. But he's just a pitcher that I have a lot of faith in that I think is pretty good. He did face the Mets in his last start and just got absolutely blown up. He gets them again, this time at home. I think we see Archer bounce back. He's able to pick up some Ks in this matchup. The Mets do have some strikeouts in their lineup. So you could definitely look to Chris Archer on today's slate. He's not my favorite option, but I'm probably going to have some exposure to him just because I think he's more talented than where he's been priced all year. But now let's talk about some of these value guys. There's a couple cheap options that stand out to me. Dylan Bundy at 6,900 at home against the Blue Jays, I think is a decent value option if you want to go to him. Not my favorite play, but definitely a guy I'm going to have in my player pool and going to get a little bit of exposure to. But I think my favorite value arm, feels scary to say, but Aaron Sanchez I like a lot at home, 5,300 with his new team. Got traded to the Astros. In his first start with the Astros, he's going to get a pretty favorable matchup pitching against the Mariners. The Mariners just don't have a good lineup right now. Just not a lot of good hitters in this lineup. Once you get past like the top 3-4 guys, it's a lot of easy outs at the bottom of the lineup, a lot of strikeouts at the bottom of the lineup as well. Aaron Sanchez, before he got traded, was actually pitching pretty well. Made 2 starts. Can't remember what the matchups were, but did pretty well with 17 and 21 DraftKings points. And he did pick up 10 Ks in his last start before he got traded. He gave up 4 runs, but was able to get some strikeouts. We've seen when pitchers get traded to the Astros, they just kind of become good. The Astros, I believe, do have one of the better pitching coaches. We've seen like with Garrett Cole, he's really turned into an elite strikeout arm. He really wasn't an elite strikeout arm when he was with the Pirates, but now he's one of the best pitchers in the league. Obviously, Verlander's just been dominant throughout his whole career. I think we're going to see Aaron Sanchez start to pitch really well. I think the Astros can work with him, let him figure some things out. I don't think he's like a complete gas can. He does have good stuff. He does have some strikeout stuff. So I like him a lot here at 5,300. Not sure if he's going to be pretty popular today or not. I think he will be because he's so cheap and the matchup's so favorable. Plus, the Mariners don't really have a high total, 4.4 implied run total. Usually, like before Sanchez got traded, it seemed like every team he'd go up against would have a very high total. But now that he's with the Astros, I think he's going to pitch well. I think they're going to figure things out with him, turn him into a better pitcher than he has been in the past. So I like Aaron Sanchez a lot at 5,300 as a value arm. But Nola and Sanchez are definitely my 2 favorite options today. I mentioned Buehler, who I like a lot. Definitely go to John Gray. You could definitely go to Chris Archer. You could consider Dylan Bundy. But I think that's where I'm really going to be looking to for my pitching today. So now let's talk about some bats. I did mention John Gray as a potential mid-range arm, but I also think some of these Giants bats are just criminally underpriced for being in Coors Field, especially a guy like Brandon Belt. I played a ton of him on Friday night. I'm going to be going right back to him on Saturday. Still very cheap at 4K. This is a guy that has a lot of power versus right-handed pitching. Now he's in Coors Field against a righty who's pretty good, but not elite by any means. Could definitely see Brandon Belt take John Gray deep here. I think Belt's got some BVP versus Gray as well. Yeah, he's hit him pretty well in the past, 6 for 18 with the home run. Just kind of adds to it. So, like Brandon Belt a lot. I think he's one of the top plays again on today's slate. Same can be said for Scooter Gennett. Scooter Gennett, a guy I played a ton of on Friday night, and I'm going to be going right back to him on Saturday. Still dirt cheap on DraftKings at only 3,600. Now, this is a much tougher matchup for him and the Giants here. Getting to face Peter Lambert Friday night was a very favorable matchup, in my opinion, for them. Getting to face John Gray, not as good of a spot, but still, like I said, John Gray, not elite by any means. Definitely a guy that can give up home runs, can give up hits, and in Coors Field, these Giants bats should just not be priced where they are. They're just way too cheap, in my opinion. So I really like Belt and I really like Gennett. Both of them feel criminally underpriced. And then another team that I think is really underpriced are the Astros. A couple of guys that really stand out on the Astros are Altuve at 4,600, Bregman 4,400, Correa 4,300. Getting to face Marco Gonzalez at home. The Astros do have one of the highest implied run totals on the slate at 6.3 runs. I really like Alex Bregman at only 4,400. He has some flexibility, so you can play him at third base or shortstop, just kind of whatever works with your lineup. So like if you want to stack the Astros and you want to play Bregman and Correa together, you can do that because you can play Bregman at third and then play Correa at shortstop. Like Bregman a lot, though, here versus Gonzalez. Gonzalez really not that good of a pitcher, just mediocre, average at best. Now he has to face this really good Astros lineup that's fully healthy. Just a ton of power in this Astros lineup, ton of righties with power. Springer, Altuve, Bregman, Correa, even Gurriel's been much better this year. And then the lefties aren't easy outs either. Brantley is going to put the ball in play. Yordan Alvarez has a ton of power. So I think the Astros are going to be one of my top stacks on Saturday night. Really like them here. Really like the righties specifically. The 4 righties at the top, Springer, Altuve, Bregman, and Correa. going to be a four-man stack that I use a lot of. And Alex Bregman, one of my favorite options from that stack, only 4,400, way too cheap for a guy that has as much power versus left-handed pitching as Bregman does. So these are going to be my 5 plays for DraftKings for Saturday night. Now let's go ahead and look at some stacks real quick, then we'll talk about some BVP before we end the video. So I would say one of my favorite stacks is probably going to be the Astros. I do like some of the Coors Fields bats. We'll talk about those in a second. But the Astros I like a lot. 6.3 implied run total versus Marco Gonzalez. That's definitely going to be a team that I look to go to. Going to Coors Field though, you have John Gray and Madison Bumgarner pitching. 2, I would say, above average pitchers, but not elite pitchers by any means. So if you want to go to bats here, especially the Giants, even though they have the lower total, the Giants are just so cheap. If you want to go to the Rockies, you could definitely consider like Arenado, Story, and Desmond. But the lefties I'm not as interested in, especially because they're so priced up. I could see doing like a 2 or 3 man stack with the Rockies with the right-handed hitters. Don't know if I'm going to be full stacking the righties though, just because I don't love this spot against Bumgarner. I think there's other spots we can look to. I think the Astros give you just as much upside, and they're cheaper as well. So I really like the Astros. You could definitely look to some Twins bats versus Danny Duffy if you want to go there. Like Nelly Cruz feels like a top play. Do like Miguel Sano at 4,800. Jorge Polanco at 4,300 I think is a really good option. If you need value, you have Gonzalez at 34, Scope at 37. So the Twins are a team you could look to. And then this Rangers and Tigers game I think makes some sense. Specifically, though, the Tigers I like a lot against Adrian Sampson. I think Matt Boyd's a really good pitcher, so I'm not really going to be interested in Rangers bats. But the Tigers do have a pretty high total for what we see the Tigers get most days. The Tigers usually never have a total that's high, 5 implied run total against Adrian Sampson. Adrian Sampson's been terrible this year, been terrible as of late, and the Tigers are so cheap. This was the team I was talking about at the beginning of the video that I think you could stack with 2 expensive pitchers. Because if you look at this lineup, the only hitter over 4K is Nico Goodrum and Brandon Dixon as well. But every hitter other than those 2 guys, under 4K, 3,700 for Jacoby Jones, 3,400 for Miggy, 3,300 for Candelario, 3,500 for Hale Castro. I know these guys aren't good hitters, but they're also dirt cheap. They're in great hitting conditions, and they're facing a pretty bad pitcher. So if you're trying to pay up for 2 pitchers, which I think makes some sense today, definitely could look to a Tiger stack because they give you a ton of value in their lineup. And I think they do give you some upside versus a pretty bad pitcher in great hitting conditions. And then lastly, do want to mention the Phillies. 6 implied run total against Ross Detweiler. Kingery, Segura, Hoskins, Realmuto feel like really good plays. Even though it's lefty-lefty, you could definitely consider Bryce Harper. Could consider Corey Dickerson as well, but do prefer righties versus Ross Detweiler. But I think that's it for stacks. Let's go ahead and look at some BVP real quick before we end the video. So just a couple of BVP plays that stand out. Alex Gordon gone 16 for 51 with 2 home runs off Kyle Gibson. Brian McCann 5 for 19, 2 home runs off Trevor Bauer. Ketel Marte 3 for 10, 2 home runs off Steven Strasburg. Trevor Story 6 for 19 with 3 home runs off Bumgarner. Charlie Blackmon 14 for 39 with a home run off Bumgarner. Scooter Gennett 6 for 10 off of John Gray. I mentioned that Brandon Belt had some BVP, 6 for 18 with the home run off of Gray. And then lastly, Anthony Rendon gone 4 for 10 with a home run off of Robbie Ray. So that's it for BVP. I think that is it for this video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy the video, and hopefully it did help you. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like down below, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. Or like always, you can hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT if you do have any questions. But good luck on this Saturday night slate. Appreciate you watching the video. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.